All right, guys, we're give you the old cue and get ready to go, and give me the thumbs up when you're ready. We're ready. So in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And we've got a wild one for you today. But before we get going through that, give you the quick introductions, typical notes. If you ever have questions, concerns, comments, issues, or suggestions, you can reach out to us at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Patreon at It Tastes Like Burning Cast, and you can find this episode on YouTube. You can search for It Tastes Like Burning, and I do recommend adding the cast there, or you're going to find a whole bunch of Simpsons episode. Jesse,
Yes.
what do we have going on today?
So we are at the 148th annual SFFMA Training Convention and Conference. We are live on YouTube, so that link's been pushed out there on the Facebook and everywhere else. So if you're out there in the world beyond right here in San Marcos, Texas, watching us, you can certainly hit us up in the chat. We've got somebody running the chat over here for us, and that'll give you the opportunity to ask a question through the chat. We've got some really interesting guests today. We'll go through and do some introductions, but one of the key things, and I think it's super important, is we all hear all the horror stories and how hard it is to find people and all this stuff, and the successes are out there. There's a lot of successes, and today we're going to focus on the successes, because I believe that the team leader, the coach, if Jerry Johnson would have told Emmett Smith and Troy Aikman, hey, we're going to go out there and lose, what would have happened, right? So we've got to take it from the positive light and look at those successes and have that positive outlook that we're going to succeed, number one, to be successful. So that's the importance for today, and we'll go through, and Matt will help get these guys introduced.
Okay, so the very first gentleman to my right is Ron Becker, Chief Ron Becker of the great big town of Crescent, Texas. Chief, will you go ahead and just do a quick introduction and just a quick hint on what your department is and how you guys do it?
I'm Ron Becker, Fire Chief for Crescent. Been the chief for 10 years. We're 13, 14 miles southwest from the southwest corner of Fort Worth, between Fort Worth and Granbury. We're a 100% volunteer department. We cover a little over 100 square miles. We don't know how many people, 8,500 people. We run around 1,000 calls a year, 900 to 1,000 calls a year, and hopefully we make things better rather than worse when we show up.
Quick question, Chief. How big is your town? Physical town?
The actual city, maybe 2,000.
Okay.
1,800 to 2,000.
And how many people are on your roster?
Right now, 77.
Yeah, that's success. That's why we brought Ron out here today, so he can help share some of the stuff that he's done today. Now, the other gentleman over here to my right is Chief Sullivan, Stephen Sullivan from Robertson, south side of Waco. Chief?
Robinson.
Yeah, Robinson Volunteer Fire Department. Yeah, my name's Stephen Sullivan. I've been our chief at Robinson since December, been on our department for 7 years. We were founded in 1955 as a volunteer department, and have been volunteers since. We have a few part-time administrative staff on our department at this point. We run about 1,200 calls a year in a population of about 12,000 people. We have 3 major highways that run through our town, including I-35. We do border Waco, so Waco will mutual aid with us, and then we have several other departments. One thing that's unique about McLennan County is we have 27 departments in our county and 9 different dispatch PSAPs, so it makes it a little bit challenging, but we do a great job. We have 57 members on our roster. About half of those have joined in probably the last 4 years, and probably 15 of them have joined in the last 2 years. And we'll talk a little bit about our training and our recruitment process here in a little bit.
And one thing I want to highlight real quick for your organization, Chief, is particularly on your medical calls. You guys came up with a pretty interesting solution and program for that. We'll go in detail on that, but what'd you guys do?
Yeah, so we border Waco. We're about 10 minutes from Baylor University's campus, and Baylor University has a very strong pre-medicine program, and those pre-medicine students are extremely smart, and when they're bored, they go do their EMT certification. So we now have a program where we have Baylor students that are EMTs spend the night at our station from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and run our medical calls at night, which keeps me from getting up and picking up grandma or someone's stub toe. And it helps keep our firefighters kind of fresh and ready for the fires. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Yeah. And then on the end down here is Greg Redden. Greg is the program director, owner of the company that manages the SAFER grant for a lot of places. So let Greg introduce himself and we'll go from there.
Yes, so I'm Greg Redden, and we manage the SAFER grant for retention and recruitment of volunteer firefighters in Texas for the state association. And we do that right now we have 8 different states. So my team, which is called ADAPT Management, manages SAFER grants and has for 17 years. So we kind of attack the challenge of recruiting volunteer firefighters with federal funds. Kind of fortunate, I know a lot of the departments out there don't really have the funds to have a retention or recruitment budget, but we do so and help rural departments in different parts of the states using those federal grants. So that's what my team does.
Yeah. And Greg is an inspiration because he says he always wants to find those success stories. So we're giving him success stories, but he's going to help us with places that aren't here, right? The guys that aren't at this table. He's seen some other successes, and he can speak to what's working and what's not working, right?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, obviously everybody faces challenges in the rural parts of the state, whether that be Texas or Rhode Island or California. People think that they're another state. Let's just take California. Well, California's sophisticated and they've got funds for everything. But if you go northern California, north of Sacramento, the departments are in the same shape as many departments in Texas. They just don't have the resources to put together a good campaign. But what Granbury will show you is it doesn't take a lot of money, it just takes effort. And footwork, as I say, about like the example I showed yesterday about Casa Loma.
Yeah.
Not much money, but it takes smarts and footwork to get out there and recruit potential volunteer firefighters.
I think one of the biggest things and we're going to talk into just kind of where Granbury got, and I'm going to try and do this in a short synopsis. I was elected chief in 2020, and I really didn't want it. But the problem was you can't continually complain about the direction the department's going if you're not going to be the one to actually propose solutions and at least put yourself out there for the election. Unfortunately for my department, I won. That was their cost. In Granbury at the time, we were about a $600,000 budget, classic 35, 37 members, 1,500 calls. There's a lot of stress on the organization, and Granbury itself shouldn't be facing the difficulties that it's facing. There was several issues there that are wide and broad spectrum, but we needed to be involved in politics. We were saving the city a ton of money by being volunteer. The membership needed, and I'm not the ooh-rah-rah, get-her-done speech kind of person, but there needed to actually be a guiding hand and a general proposed direction. What do we want to do? I mean, we had money, we had the training field, we had the support. Our city council liked us, city management liked us. It's just, we were faltering. And for the best way to kind of overanalyze it is we were like Elmer Fudd hunting wabbits. Every time we went out in the woods, we kept shooting ourselves. And it was over stupid little things. And at the end of the day, The only thing I did is found the right people and put them in the right position, stayed absolutely unequivocally out of their way, and just went and got them money wherever it needed to be got. Fast forward to today, we're at 85, 87 members. I'm at $1.3 million. Last year, we ordered 4 trucks. We've signed a training agreement with a local academy in the Fort Worth area with TCC. Our entire training program, all of our training field work, it's all recognized at an accredited level, and just reaching out and starting to bridge gaps and make friends. Another huge impact of all of this is a lot of the work that we did, we shared, okay? The intent of it wasn't to hoard it, and here's why. To me, it's real simple. It's automatic aid. I don't want to be on a working fire for 9 hours. That is not awesome. That is the definition of not awesome, okay? If we can build our training program up and we can build our own individuals up, why on earth are we not working with our automatic aid on this front? Now, Granbury, we're lucky in Hood County. It's a very small county. It's 500 square miles total. There's 9 departments. You can't go 10 minutes in any direction and not be realistically within another 2 departments within 10 minutes. So we were close together. We're centrally located. We had the training field. Jesse built our training program up, okay? And he had taken that and folded it into something that was very palatable to our neighbors. Made it easy for our neighbors, had value to our neighbors. And our neighbors jumped on it because, quite frankly, that would be silly of them not to jump on that. You have an organization providing the field, the fuel, the instructors, and even lunch for free. All you have to do is figure out how to push people forward, okay? Get your new people to go to that program. At the end of that, through SFFMA, we get our certifications done and testing done. The neighbors of the neighbors started to recognize this. Fast forward, within 2 years, we were on one fire academy with 55 people in it. We were the largest fire academy in the state that semester. And we're volunteer. There's huge benefits to it. The other part of this is figuring out how to grow the organization. Now, this is a long, convoluted discussion and can get technical or political. There's no one way to grow your organization. We tried 50 things, 5 of them worked. And that's the kicker, is figuring out what works for you. What is your community? You might be from a retirement community. You might be in a really rural community. You may be inner city. And what worked for us maybe won't work for your organization or work for Robinson or Crescent. It's kind of be brave and go try things and see what happens. Will you fail? Yes. Learn from it. Move on. Try not to spend a ton of money doing that.
First attempt at learning, right? So when I went to join Granbury, right, and I moved from Brady, Texas, and ran a company in the Metroplex for a year, and that didn't work out, and decided I was going to move to Granbury and hang my shingle and start a business. And I walked into the station and found a cadet, a junior member, and said, "Hey, how do I get an application to this place?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know that we're taking applications. I don't know where they are. I don't know how you do this. But there'll be people here tonight because we're doing a push-in." And I'm like, I've been around. I was an assistant chief in Brady, so I know how this works. And I know wherever that chief is, if I find him, he's going to want another member, and especially one with 20 or so years experience, right, as a volunteer in a pretty busy department. So I go to the push-in and find the chief and get an application that night and turn it in and go through the process. Well, that's the most idiotic process I've ever seen in my life, right? And we're all doing that. Like, this is a thing, right? You have to find that person. You got to figure out when somebody's there. You've got to get the door code or meet somebody on a scene to be able to get an application to join a department. And I can attribute a lot of the growth of Granbury. So at that time, there was like 36, 38 members. Yeah, we're 86, 88 members, so there's a difference there. I've been there just under 5 years, so there's a difference there, right? A big difference. So I attribute a bunch of that to having a proper website, having an application available online, having people that are responsive to dealing with those applications, reaching out to those people in a timely manner, because it's a sell. You're selling right there at that point. That's a sales lead. That person is your sell. The sell is get them in the door and get them to try it, right? You want them to try it. And I know Greg has a lot of knowledge in marketing and stuff, and we're gonna lean on him right here about how kind of what it takes to do something like that, the technical side of it, and kind of how you find a good marketing firm that can help you with that.
Well, there's two parts of your story that immediately you highlighted the thought, and that is, one is that you ran into the cadet
Right.
that didn't know the process, right? And so really, everybody on your team is a recruiter, or should be. So that cadet should be taught right off the bat what the process is. So when somebody does walk into the station, not just that cadet, but everybody in the department is a recruiter. So your recruitment team just needs to be ready to go when somebody walks in the door or you're working a public event, and know that process. And then the second thing, Jesse, you mentioned is the process. You can't believe how many departments have a process that just throws so many obstacles in the way. I give the example about San Diego County. San Diego County Fire is huge, right? And we did a campaign for them and sent them over 2,000 applicants in a 6-month period using social media. But their process was controlled by HR. The HR department had put the process together, and when that applicant applied to be a firefighter, volunteer in San Diego County, they got a packet that was that thick. And so many young people do not want to fill out a packet that thick. So it was the process that was their obstacle.
Right. So who in here has an online application process? A couple of you, right? So find those guys that raise their hand and ask them how they did it later. That
Kind of the side discussion on this is, we want people to join our organizations. Is it a rite of passage, or do you want them to join? It's kind of seems like a cheesy way to explain it, but we can't sit there and complain about people aren't joining, but you have 14 gatekeepers, 37 different ways to get on the organization, and 5 different applications, and no one knows.
and a birthright.
Right. And I've seen that. This is happening in my county. And I tell them, I'm like, guys, you stop that. Like, you gotta stop that. The other thing I wanna highlight is, and don't get me wrong, this is a social media thing. And we live and grow our little podcast and awareness through social media. And I can believe that if you do social media wrong, it can be the end of you. But it can also be one of the most incredible benefits that you bring to your organization. And I have found, in the little time we've been doing this and the little time that I've been chief in Granbury, you would be shocked at how bad your community awareness is for your entity and organization. There's a direct link that I have found between the organizations that we would all label as successful, or they're at least strong, or they're thriving, and their ability to communicate with their community. And again, we're not talking about inner city departments here. Chief Becker's department is right on the verge of being really rural, and it is on the lower end of the socioeconomic demographic. So it's not a huge upscale community. There's a lot of people. He has to reach out to them, okay? And that's, at the end of that, that's part of it. is figuring out your outreach program and community education and generating awareness on your organization. And that's something that particularly Chief Becker does really well, is he is out there absolutely hitting the streets and always talking. Chief, want to talk about your
Always talking.
your recruiting?
When I took over as chief, our previous chief passed away, and we probably looked like a lot of volunteer departments. We had 26 members, and our average age was 54. And it was very clear that if we didn't come up with something, we'd be useless and out of business in a few years. It's the chief's job to recruit people. And I'll illustrate it this way. I'm a preacher's kid, and a volunteer department's a lot like a church. The church is run off of volunteer labor, and when I would, before I retired, I was in the oil and gas business. I moved to different places. I'd go to see what church did we want to join, and if the pastor didn't have the time to invest and see if I was a possible member for their church, I went to a different church. If the top guy in your department is not going to express an interest in new recruits, you might as well forget it. It's not in my opinion, it's not a thing that you delegate. That doesn't mean that you don't want everybody being recruiters, as he points out. Our application is 1 page long. There's a second page for you to sign off to get your background check run, but it's 1 page long. And one blank in there says, I was recruited by, to put down who was the member that contacted me and tried to get us recruited. There's a reason I do that. If someone recruits someone and they become a really, really good member, we'll pay them a little finder's fee bonus and take it out of our operating money. The other thing you've got to understand, and Crescent's numbers parallel this. There's an old dated study that says the average tenure of a volunteer firefighter is about 5 years. It may or may not be that. I will tell you, Crescent parallels that. So if you are not operating believing that the person you recruit today you won't have in 5 years, you're not going to be enthused to be bringing in new people. And part of what I did in a previous life was I drilled oil and gas wells. The minute we turn a gas well on, it's depleting. It's ready to run out. If you're not getting, if your geologists and landmen and engineers aren't drilling new wells, you go out of business. And the same is true with the volunteer fire department. You better approach that the person that's coming in the door that's new for you, you won't have in 5 years. And what does that mean to you? If you're going to spend 2 of those 5 years trying to get that person trained and up to speed, you just lost 40% of their contribution. So you've got to come up with ways to get them up to speed where they can be contributors. Now, they may not be your best guy on the panel or something like that, but everybody can contribute something, and you better work on how you're going to get people going as fast as they can. Our process is really simple, and we talked about process. My truck carries applications. There's people on our department. How many of you go to motor vehicle accidents? Do you know that that's a great recruiting field? I've got lots of members on my department that I recruited on the side of the road because they were involved in an MVA. And you got to run to the truck and say, here's the application. First page on the application's a letter from me. It tells you what's involved. And what we do is we ask you to come to 3 or 4 or 5 meetings. rub shoulders with us, figure out if you think we're a group you want to invest some time with. Because, and I tell people straight up, you may look at us and say, this is the worst bunch I ever saw. I don't want to be part of this. Well, I'd rather know that early than late. And by the same token, our members get to rub shoulders with you, and I explain to them, we don't have an interview committee, or the chief doesn't pick who's on the department. It comes first Thursday, we eat dinner together, have our business meeting, and vote our new members in. And the idea is that our folks get a chance to rub shoulders with the new applicant and vice versa. And almost everyone, we think, okay, great, let's give them a try. We got all our probationary things and all like that. But the other thing that we've done is we have one of our personnel lieutenants who is assigned strictly to our new members. And his job is try to get them to be contributors as fast as we can. And the way I sum it up is you get voted on, and 10 minutes later we take a call. I'm going to tell you to get in the truck with me and go. Now, you may not get out, or you may just stand by me and watch what's going on. But let's face it, firefighting, you can pick your number, but firefighting, 80%, anyone off the street knows what to do today. You know which end of the hose the water comes out. Now, there's 20% of it that you can really hurt yourself or get someone hurt that you better know what's going on. We go to a car wreck, there's stuff to be swept up. I will bet you that if you've been on my department 5 minutes, you know how to work a broom. I can have you sweep. So you've got to try to make these folks feel like they're contributing as fast as they can and be a part. And there's a little twist. Do we use Facebook? Yes, I do. I'll tell you a little secret on Facebook. If what you're putting up on your Facebook page or your social media page is, oh, look at us, we practiced tonight pulling hose off the truck, forget it. Nobody cares about that. We assume you know how to pull the hose off the truck. People don't care about kind of, oh, look at us, we did this or something. Make it newsy. And I'm going to illustrate that. In the last month, we had a couple of big things happen at our department. After waiting 8 years, we finally got a grant from the Forest Service for a new tanker. And that's another subject, why it takes 8 years to get there. But, so we got that. We got a new tanker. We've been fortunate. We're expanding our facility. And we've got a club that recognizes CPR life saves. And so far this year, we've had 2 CPR life saves. And so we put all of that together for a big event. We had an event. We had a couple hundred people come to the station. A lot of fun, although it was hot. And celebrated all these things rolled into one thing. Post pictures on Facebook, look at what went on and all like that. And we have about 7,600 Facebook followers. Okay, the reach on that post was about 2,400 saying, look what happened, okay? The week before, we had a little car wreck. Car rolls over, it's sitting upside down. Lady that was in it crawled out. We didn't do anything but keep the traffic off of her. She didn't need to go to the hospital, signed her off and all like that. Put a picture of that upside down car on Facebook and say, hey, with this wreck's out here, traffic's slow. 3,000. So people were more interested in that car upside down than they were about what to us was a huge event. So you got to know your audience and what people are interested in. They want to see the exciting things that all of you guys are doing. And then what happens is they say, that's exciting. I may want to be a part of that.
And now I want to add real quick to something that Chief Becker said there. So if you're in the proverbial, we have Facebook, but the membership views, everything's way, way down. That is one thing that you can get that get that viewership up on your social media, because we did it, is we started posting major accidents, but particularly wildland fires. And we had a dedicated person, and they were posting for wildland. And unfortunately, I hate to say it this way, but this is just the way the algorithm works. The right wildland fire hit, and they were the first ones posting. Our social media following's bigger than the population of our town now. Part of that is due to the proximity of being next to DFW or southwest of Fort Worth. But you catch the right post and it goes viral, and we had one post that did, and our viewership went up, 800, 900% off that one post, and then the subsequent post, same thing. Total followers, 4,000 or 5,000 to 17,000. It just takes being diligent with it. And I want to add, and I think everyone realizes, it's not being stupid with it. You know, you're posting community updates is what you're doing. And make it a benefit to your community, and that's why they're following your page. They're actually getting relevant information to them.
I'll add one thing on it. All of us struggle on the social media about how you control what people put out there, you know, and what your members put out and all like that, and it's a minefield. In our department, I control the Facebook page. I have one guy that backs me up, but I control what goes on it. So if there's a screw up on what's posted, blame me. And there have been a couple of screw ups, right, to get something down real quick. But what you do gain from it over and above the community reach out is our social media policy is really simple. You don't post anything about any of our calls, period. Yeah, if you want to post a picture of yourself in a helmet at the station, I don't care about that. But it has to do with the call, you don't post. But what you can do is share my post. And so lots of our members that want their families and friends and all to see what they're up to, they take and can share that post, which means I've signed off on it, it's okay, it can go. And you'll see lots of our guys sharing our post. Granted, that kind of extends your reach too, but it gives an opportunity for your members to tell their friends and their family, look what I'm doing.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm going to kind of jump back to the
Yeah.
application period for just a second. So when I joined in 2018, I reached out, our fire department Robinson had a Facebook page for maybe a year or so. It had 200 or 300 followers, and I sent a message, and someone replied almost instantly and was like, just show up on a Tuesday night and we'll get you connected. I walked in that Tuesday night not knowing a soul, had just moved to Waco, my wife and I had, and they immediately connected me with the chief that was there. I got to not participate in training, but got to kind of watch training, all that kind of stuff. But our application was 7 pages, and it was like the smallest font you'd ever see, and there was no room to write. And it was just really complicated. I managed to fill it out, and somehow they were able to read it enough to allow me on the department. But if you think about, like, fast forward to today, like if you go to robinsonfire.org/join, there's an application there that will take you maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the most. If you go to Amazon right now and you need to purchase a toy for your kid, you can do that in less than 30 seconds. You need to get your application to that level. Like, think about how Amazon does it. Think about the marketing behind all these online companies and how fast they want you to check out on their website so that you spend money with them. Your application should be the same way. You want it to be zero barrier to applying, because you can get them all the details and all that when you meet with them and all that, the nuances behind joining the department, but make it accessible to apply as quickly as possible. It's kind of like the makemeafirefighter.org site. Like, they don't ask a lot of questions. They get the basic information and they send it on to the departments so that the department can reach out and then talk to them about what it takes to join. And we have probably not the most easy standards. Before you're actually accepted to our department, you have to complete NIMS 100, 200, 700, 800, Courage to be Safe, Traffic Incident Management, and Cancer in the Fire Service. That's 8 trainings that you have to complete before you're actually admitted to our department. But are we restricting you from showing up on our Tuesday night trainings and hanging out and getting to know and rub shoulders like Chief Becker was talking about? Absolutely not. And if we get a fire, I might have you sit in my Tahoe and go with us to the call so you can observe and get that addiction fueling very, very quickly.
That's right.
To get them up and going. We're not gonna say, oh, sorry, man, we gotta, like, first time I went to Granbury, me and our firefighters I'll talk about here in a little bit, we walked in and no joke, like they handed me a cup of coffee and before I took a drink, we got called to a structure fire and I'm like, well, see you later, I guess we'll drive back to Waco. And they're like, no, get in the truck, we're going. And I was like, man, I'm gonna join Granbury.
The faster you can get them engaged, the better off you are in the long run.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we take it even a little farther than these guys. Like that minute they're voted on and that night they're given gear, like they can go on a call. There's not much they're going to do, obviously, right? They're going to stand there and absorb what's happening around them and start the learning process. But they already know how to put the seatbelt on, so we don't have to teach them how to buckle in. They've got all this stuff that they don't know how to put on, so they're not going inside, but they can go on that call. They can start observing, they can start learning, they can be engaged into the department, because Matt says something all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So firefighting is like smoking cigarettes in the 50s. It's free, cool, and addictive. Okay? And how are we struggling with that? I mean, we've got the free, cool, and addictive part. And we'll talk a little bit later kind of about the generational gap stuff, but because I had that bad. That was something that needed to be addressed in my organization. Still have it, but we're at least bridging it a little bit. But yeah, firefighting's awesome. There's no reason we should be struggling with that part of it.
Before we get away from Facebook and that conversation about Facebook, we recently, we're not even through with it. We're 2/3 the way through a 3-month ad campaign. We employ a marketing company at Granbury. We pay them money. We have a marketing budget. But all this is stuff you can do yourself. It's doable. Actually been talking with Kim briefly about how we can maybe create some training for this because it's important. So we ran a 3-month campaign. We're 2 months into it. That campaign we spent $900 in ad spend to Facebook. That $900 resulted in 2,700 clicks that sent 2,700 people to our website. Of those people, we got about 40 applications, right?
So we paid $23 for an application. So if your department's hurting, would you pay $20 for an application? I think everyone would go to the ATM right now to go get applications. Because I just told you how to get applications. It's just figuring out that message and how to target.
And I have no idea if that's normal, if those rates are normal.
That's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, nationwide with volunteerfirefighter.org, we pay about $50 per application. Yeah, with our social media spends.
Yeah. So it's not that expensive to do, right? Even at $50 an application, I'm all in at $50 an application. And it doesn't have to be a 3-month campaign. It doesn't have to be a year-long deal. I can't tell you how to do it. I can tell you how to hire somebody to do it. That is not my expertise at all, right? I'm not the IT guy. I'm the IDIOT guy. So that doesn't fall in my wheelhouse at all. But there is companies, and like Greg's company does this on a national and state level, but there's companies in your town that probably do this. And there's a decent chance that they might pro bono some of their labor on this because they want to support your organization. The company we use, we pay them full rate because we value what they're doing that much. We spent between production cost and ad spend and just website maintenance for Q2 is $5,300 is what we're spending. we're spending a lot of money on that.
And
But-
I want to add something real quick to that. You also realize I'm busy. And it's a cheap cop-out, but I'm busy. If I can pay someone to take care of this for us and it generates given results, and I can go off and go do political things for the department and not have to deal with this, I'm gonna pay it every time, okay? So just understand that that's kind of my mindset on this. It works really well, and I don't have to do it. This is a good deal for me.
And the other thing about that is there's a good chance with a younger generation in your own department that you've got somebody in your own department that can do some of that work. Yesterday, a couple of people came up to me and showed me their recruitment video. And I said, who did this for you? Well, one of my volunteer firefighters did it. And it was clear video, good footage of action shots with their own department and then a message across the front. So, yeah, and it was all done by one of their own volunteer firefighters.
I think, doesn't your department chief do a lot of TikTok stuff, and then you just use the kids in your department, right?
Kids, I'm sorry, I'm old. Anybody under 30.
And we're gonna get, when this Greg leaves, we're gonna bring that Greg up.
Are you ready, Greg?
All right, Trey for Greg. Yeah, so a couple of our younger staff, what we do is they're really good in photography. They're actually in high school, and so they do photography and videography in the high school. And so I said, hey, you guys interested in fire? And they were like, yeah, of course. I'm like, you guys want to make runs? And they're like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, well, you can't go in the building, but bring your camera. And so they actually do a lot of our TikToks and social media videos, and we create all that in-house and put it out for recruiting purposes. Matter of fact, while you guys were talking, I actually just put out a Facebook recruiting post, and I've already got a hit, so I'm going to go back to that.
All right. We'll get you up here in a minute, Greg, because
I can just plug, the SFF, the Safer Grant for recruiting, like Chief Becker talked about, he has applications on his truck. Like you can get pins that say, we have pins, we have flash drives, all of it says robinsonfire.org/join. We have canopy tents, we have tablecloths, banners, all that stuff. And it's like the easiest grant application you can fill out. If you have not talked to their booth in the exhibit hall before you leave, you need to talk to them. Our flash drives have all of those NIMS trainings we require, has a link to our website, everything to make it as easy as possible to find the information that you need. It has our officers' contact information on there. So it's $2,000 a department, is that right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around in there?
Yeah, so you can spend the different ideas at different points in the grant. We're there to help with the funds. So whatever you come up with, we talk about this in our workshops, whatever ideas you come up with, it could be anything from coasters and or USBs and anything you want to put your message on, we can help with that with the Safer Grant funds.
Here's our little give me pin. I carry them, I hand them out right and left, has our name on it. It's got the little flashlight on the end when you turn it on, and people eat these up like candy.
Yeah.
so I'm going to plug those workshops that Greg does because, and I said in most of, or part of the one yesterday, and I said in there because literally I eat this stuff up. This is what I live for, right? This is my purpose at the department, is to build and grow and recruit and train and do all these things. My job is not as centered around running calls as you would think any other assistant chief in the world's job is. My job is more about doing stuff and growing the department. That's my job in the department. What Granbury did and how we got to the answers we got, we took the long way around. Like we circled the earth to come back to the point where we got the answers, and then Matt goes to the leadership one, right? And he comes back from this leadership seminar in, where were you at? Longview. And he comes back and he's like, I'd love to tell you it was the greatest thing, but we've already done these things. But I wish that I would have went there first. So we spent 4 or 5 years getting to this point, and there's literally a cheat code for it, right? So to not use that kind of resource that's out there and available to you, that's literally the cheat code for growing and developing and expanding your department, you know, the bigger struggle with that is just actually taking the leap to to do the things that are being suggested, right? That's the hard part, because we all know, and we watched the little video about the monkeys, right, that happened yesterday, if you were in Greg's deal. Like, we're so resistant to change, and anything that has to do with the organization, but we'll buy a better truck, we'll buy new equipment, we'll buy a thermal imager, we'll buy the better gear, we'll grow all that part of it, and we'll embrace the technologies there, but we'll still run on a set of bylaws from 1907, right? And those 1907 bylaws are not as applicable today as we like to think they are. A lot of the times that stuff's strangling us because we're just falling victim to that. One of the big things is our membership was tied to you living in the city or living into, expanded into, you had to live in Hood County. And we've opened that up now, and you can live in San Marcos, come volunteer in Granbury if you want to. You're going to drive a lot, right? And turns out Thursday nights are real important to us, so you've got to come on Thursday night, but because that's when we're doing all the things we're doing, and that's the important night for our department, and we're not going to change that for one guy. Like, that's a deal breaker. Like, if you can't do Thursdays, we're sorry. Maybe some other department does Tuesdays, and you can find them.
You can come to Robinson if Tuesday's your night.
Okay, Tuesday's your night, go to Robinson.
I don't care where you live either.
Yeah,
Me
and
neither.
just by making this one change, we're able to pick up all these people. And the argument that happens in the department, the interdepartmental argument about this is, well, they don't live here, and they're not going to be dedicated, and it's not their town, and it's not their community. I've got guys that drive an hour one way to come hang out at a station, run calls, and come to every training we have. And that's a lot. We have a lot of training. We train, last year was 248 hours offered of internal training in the department. We offered 248 hours. Our average member was 68 hours of training last year. And so,
Can I ask a question that one of the two of you from Granbury can answer? So what does it take to build that of, you have people that will drive an hour to volunteer. What are you doing at your station that gets people to hang out at your station?
So-
That's a long answer.
that's a long story.
right.
Long answer.
The short answer is we have a culture in our department that hangs out at the station. The station is the cool place to be. We don't have shifts at all. Like, we're 2,000 calls a year, soon to hopefully be an ISO 2 if everything goes our way, and we have no shifts.
Yeah, with the shoot time, 2 minutes and 39 seconds, an average of 18 people on a fire. So, yeah, no staffing. Don't want it. I'm telling you, don't want it. Staffing would destroy me. Don't want it. Not interested. Don't need it. Not a discussion piece. In fact, it's a non-negotiable. That's how committed we are to volunteers. Because it works, and it works really well. What's our cheating woodchuck here? Granbury does training. We get people certifications. We are more than happy to take young men and women from the community, get them their firefighter 1, 2, hazmat awareness ops, get them to TCFP, finish the testing there, and send them to their careers and go forth and be fantastic members of the community for the next 60 years. And this is one of our single greatest contributing factors that we have to our community. And we don't offer it and yell about it from the top of the mountain. And be like, we take people that are generally clueless and lost in life at 20, who isn't, okay? And we give them purpose, we give them direction, we give them guidance, we give you technical training, we give you a direction, we give you contacts, we give you resources. We know a lot of people in the Metroplex. Had a guy just, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, got hired at Benbrook. One before him, Bedford. That was a month ago. I'm almost sending a career man and woman out monthly now. Almost, not quite, monthly. I beg for it. Who's not going to take that up if you're interested in the fire and EMS world?
And
They're coming.
the majority of them, they may take a break for that probationary period at that career job, the majority of them are coming back. We get them back. And there's some of our best lieutenants, captains, they're the people that are becoming the leaders in our department because they gained some experience both ways, and they're becoming leaders in the departments that they're going to in the city, and they're advancing faster because they've gained knowledge and experience with us. And I know Greg's going to leave here in just a minute, but I want to give you the opportunity to just kind of wrap up what you think and your thoughts on what we've talked about.
Well, I'll go back to the retention and recruitment workshops that are labeled sometimes leadership development, and leadership development because the first half of those agendas is based on retention. We look at the retention issue first, right? And the chief talked about if you know that the average is 5 years, then it's a math problem at that point. If you have 30 volunteers on your roster and you know you're going to lose 10% a year, let's say, well, that's 3, right? So what's your recruitment goal? Your recruitment goal to grow should be at least 4. So basically, we start there and talk about that in the retention and recruitment workshops. And those workshops aren't all my ideas that we teach. We've been fortunate enough to teach those workshops in 17 states for 15 years. So what we're doing is gathering best practices from different departments like Granbury. And so we do that, and then you'll hear, like yesterday, Chief Oprandy and me tell success stories, whether it be on leadership or recruitment. And so in Texas, we do 4 a year, and there's one coming up in Lubbock, and there's one coming up in Corpus Christi in October and November, and you can get that off the State Firefighters website, the information for dates. Love to have you. And again, we're fortunate enough that we have SAFER grant funds that pay for all that and pay for you to attend, like the people who attended yesterday get their travel reimbursed through the federal funds in the grant. So yes, so ADAPT does manage these for state associations, but really what we do is bring back great stories on retention first and recruitment second of how to build your department. So I'll finish that up and trade out with Greg and just say, join us if you can. And there'll be 4 or 5 more workshops next year here in Texas. So please join us.
Does anyone have any questions for Greg, specifically off of anything you've heard today? Because if you do, jump up there and take your opportunity and run.
And he's got a booth in the trade show too, so.
Yeah, we have a big booth, so Chief's talked about it. If you're interested in using the recruitment funds or PPE, physicals, please come out and see us because I'm not the expert. Vicki and Jessica are. They'll get through.
I'm the IoT guy, so.
Yeah. So thank you for your time, and I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as we change out Greg's here real quick, one thing I always highlight is, I talked about Granbury currently where we're at, okay? Staffing, not needed, response times, on and on. This is good. Here's the other part of this discussion that I have with city council and commissioners. I tell them the reality of things. That's today, okay? We're volunteer today. We're always going to be volunteer today. We have to be concerned about tomorrow. Are we always going to be on the high side? Not necessarily. Historically, if you look at the trend, we've always had a general ebb and flow to it, but it's been a general increase over the years. Granbury's been around since 1907. Granbury's been really strong since about the 1940s. So there's a lot of historical data to keep track of, and I do a lot of analytics. But at the end of the day, particularly for any community, whether it be a rural small town or just a tiny city, bigger city, there's an ultimate burden for being volunteer. And there's nothing wrong with trying to address, will the volunteers always be available? You have to address that. That is the 5 pounds of flesh that your local government leaders are paying by having volunteer. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. Okay, that's where I say track your data, be responsible about it, be held accountable to it. There's nothing wrong with holding you, the leadership, accountable to representing, like, these are the facts. Here's what we've shown historically. This is where we're at. But don't hedge your bet on that. It's okay to acknowledge that and have these two things be true. So now that we've got Greg in, Greg?
The other Greg.
The other Greg.
I don't know I don't think I have as much excitement and information as he has. He's a pretty solid guy, but thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Introduce yourself, kind of tell us a little bit about where you're from and everything.
Yeah, so I'm Greg Atkinson. I'm the fire chief at Divine Fire and Rescue down in beautiful Divine, Texas. Anybody in the room know where Divine is? A handful of you, all right, great. How many of you have only learned where Divine is in like the last 3 years? Okay, yeah, most of you. Okay, that's pretty much it. Our town is a town of about 4,000 people. Unlike most of the guys up here, our closest real city is San Antonio, and it's every bit of 40 minutes away. Our first level 1 trauma center is probably 45 minutes away. So we are extremely rural, and much like these guys, we had to find ways to think outside the box to get people in the building. And I love what you guys have touched on so far on some of the things you're doing. It's kind of, I listen to you guys and I'm like, wow, we're doing the right things because we're doing all the things that these guys up here are doing that are being successful. One thing I really want to push, you guys talk about building a culture. When you started on that, I'm ready to dive in on that. That's everything I believe in. I believe the volunteer department has lost building value in people. For so long in the fire service, it was when the new person comes in, their job is to clean the toilets and get the coffee. Well, I tell you, as a volunteer, if I'm raising my hand saying I'm willing to come down there for free and put my life on the line for people, I'm not down there to get coffee and clean toilets. I'm down there to get on the fire scene. I'm down there to learn how to do the job. I'm down there to, and then how do you keep them? You build value in them. You went back to the training piece. We train with the purpose of these people leaving. And I know for some people, they're like, oh, you're going to spend all that money on these people to get trained up, and then they might leave. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Because I'm going to train 5 of them and only one's going to leave. And so I'm going to keep those other 4 that I've trained that are really good. And by the way, that one that leaves, they're going to go tell people, and I'm going to get 5 more recruits out of that guy. So really for training those 5, yeah, I might lose one, but ultimately I'm going to end up gaining, 8 or 9. And so I'm okay if they leave. And some of your best leaders in the fire service, well, Les Stevens here in San Marcos, he's known as a chief builder. He's got chiefs literally all over the country. People that come under him, he builds value in them. And we build value in them not just in the fire service, but I just sent a lady, she came to me, she was working gas stations, and she didn't like the way her life was going, she didn't like where she was at, she wanted to change things up, and so we helped her get her EMT, she loved that. We just helped her get her EVT, or emergency vehicle technician. Now anybody who's ever sent a fire truck to get maintenance know these guys get paid really well, right? We paid every dime of that. She didn't, we've given her about $7,000 to $8,000 worth of certifications that we paid for that she doesn't have to. And now I have an in-house EVT, I have another EMT, and she's not going anywhere. She works for other companies making good money, but she still volunteers and runs with us because we are putting value into people.
Yeah. That's a big thing, right? Number one, we're asking for our membership to give us their most valuable commodity, right? And that's their time. And there's not any extra. There's not a way to get extra. You can't cheat death and get another year. Like, that is their most valuable commodity. That's what means more to them than anything they have, is their time.
Absolutely.
And just to have a value of that time that's more than I cleaned the toilet or I had to wash 17 trucks because it was my day to wash all the trucks, right? There's so much more value there because if the culture's there, the trucks are going to get washed anyway, right? The station's going to get cleaned on its own. The culture dictates that thing. Build the culture to make the chores happen on their own. Matt and I don't tell anybody to go wash a fire truck.
Exactly.
I have yet to tell anybody on our department to wash a fire truck.
It's, we're all going to have different management styles, okay? Mine's mine, yours is yours. We both have good and bad, okay? I'm not the benevolently elected dictator.
That's wrong.
That's wrong. Here's the kicker, though. You're going to catch 2 sides of me. Everything's fine, then you screwed up. Then you get to encounter me, okay? There's all different levels of screwing up, okay? And the kicker with it is that in investing in the culture of the organization, particularly this is a young man's argument, and getting them to understand Your value to the organization is not related to how many calls you make. Okay? I have great value in a guy on my department. He's been on the department for probably 40 years now, but he hasn't made a call in 7 years. And he runs analytics, and his analytics are worth tens of millions of dollars. His stats he gives me are ridiculous. He's the most important person to our organization, by far. It's not the chief, not even close. I'm replaceable, but Marty isn't, because of his time, energy, and effort that he puts in his numbers. And it took a while, but I've gotten my young guys to really start looking at value as not call volume related. For Granbury, call volume, the whole big picture, I'm telling you, it's not 30% of your total contribution for us. It's 33. We'll say a third. So a third of what you're doing for Granbury is call volume. What are you doing in the other 2/3? There's a lot, okay? And again, we don't do schedules. So it's that person's responsibility to figure out what they're going to pick up in that 2/3. A lot of it's training. A lot of it is just seat time. They don't have anything going on, and they go to the station, and they're sitting there. Talking about ISO for just a half a second. Guys, we logged almost 40,000 hours of on-duty time at the station last year. You got to think about that number real quick. Okay, 40,000 hours. That's a lot of seat time at the station. Could I definitively tell you what our culture is? No, I really don't, because there's 25, 50 different aspects of it. There's friendship, there's camaraderie, there's purpose, there's being, there's community, there's friends, there's family, and none of it is just one part of it. And here's the kicker, this is not unique to us. I haven't yet not encountered a volunteer department or combination department that doesn't have their own aspect of it. Do we have all-out absolute wars inside my organization? Oh, you bet. Oh yeah. Now I got an old guy that's ready to he's going to full Nelson this young guy whenever he gets a chance, okay? It happens, okay? Run with it. The running joke for Granbury, and this is probably true for all organizations, and I tell this very specifically to new people when they join. If they're not messing with you, making fun of you, if you're not included in that, and you're not part of the jokester part of it, and you're being interacted with, that's a problem, and you need to come to me, okay? Because we got to go figure out why, what's happening. Because that's really rare in my organization, that someone kind of gets shunned like that. And I may not know why, but someone's going to know what's going on. And usually, 99% of the time, there's a reason that it's happening. And the very, very few times that you're ever going to get truly separated from Granbury, yeah, that's where it's coming from. Sometimes I don't know what's actually happening until I notice it and start talking to people and find out, like, oh, that we need to fix this right now, immediately.
Cleave out the serial killer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get them out.
Well, and I think when you're talking culture, one of the things that I know you guys do really well, and something we've implemented down in Divine, is we've implemented a culture of growth. So what I mean by that is we got a lot of young guys. Our location is right next to the high school there in Divine, which actually is extremely handy. We actually teach a fire and EMS academy in the high school there. And so it's a way to get us some guys that are coming in at 16, 17, 18 years old into our department. And so one thing we have found is that these 16, 17, and 18-year-olds now that are coming in are not like the 16, 17, and 18-year-olds that were coming into the department almost 20 years ago. And we get a lot of kids in now. You got to remember, kids nowadays, 50% of all high schoolers come from a broken home. Okay, 25% of those have a parent who's arrested. 25% of those have a parent that's deceased. I mean, it's it's a really difficult situation for most high schoolers nowadays. So where I was lucky enough to grow up, my parents are still together. They're both still alive, amazingly. God bless them. Hopefully they stay that way for a while. But, where I grew up in a home where my dad showed me how to mechanic and how to use power tools and all that stuff, we get kids all the time in that just have not had the opportunity, and that's not their fault, right? So we have fostered a culture of growth, and so these kids come in and they say, well, I don't know how to use a chainsaw. Well, we don't make fun of them, we don't scare them. We go, okay, well, let's show you. We'll take you right out here. Let's go to work, and we do that. We foster a culture where it's okay to make a mistake. Not that I want you to, but I'm not going to scream and yell at you, right? We all make mistakes. I've made plenty of them, I promise you, all right? I'm on my second marriage for a reason. We've all made our mistakes, right? So the point is, we want to teach you, hey, it's okay to make a mistake, learn from it, right? Why did you make the mistake? You were probably outside the standard, right? So this is why these standards are important. Let's follow the standards, all that. And we kind of teach them and grow them. And what that has done is, when the high schoolers, they have an open campus, when they get on lunch, instead of going down to McDonald's or somewhere like that, they just come across the field, and now they're hanging out at the fire department. And we've built such a culture that the high schools even hit us up and said, hey, look, if you happen to pop a call during lunch, those guys are okay to miss fifth period. They're okay to miss sixth period. Yeah, and so that's big, right? You're talking a town of 4,000 people that couldn't find volunteers during the day because everybody's at work or school. All of a sudden, at lunchtime, I got 30 people in the building. And, that's a big deal. And so, it all comes back to fostering a culture where they want to be. Now, don't get me wrong, they mess up big enough. There's all different levels of screw-ups, right? There's sometimes that it's a boot in the rear end. But they understand that if they come to me, I'm not just going to go from zero to chopping your head off, right? It's okay to make a mistake. I've got a captain who was a master sergeant in the United States Army. This guy's very lazy. This is the way he is. I love the guy to death. That's why he's a great captain. But he also understands that fostering of young personnel, and so he does a great job of saying, "Hey, have you ever mechanicked on a truck? Nope. Come on, we're going right now." Just out of the blue, they were sitting there playing Xbox, and he's like, "Nope, we're going to go mechanic on. I'm going to show you how to change an oil filter. I'm going to change it this," and it all just. The more I go back to building value in people, right? You value your people, they want to be there, you build that culture, and all of a sudden now you got people in the building 24/7, you don't have to pay anybody to be there. Now, we still do, but that's a whole nother topic.
One thing I want to highlight real quick is, particularly at a chief level, there's two types of problems that we deal with. The first one is rare, but someone screwed up, this straight up disciplinary thing, it's serious, and it's not going to end well, okay? Then there's the second one where it's just like, oh, God, all right, and it's not this really big of a thing, okay? Little paperwork, little re-education, we're fine. I have yet to have someone under the age of 30 cause a problem, all right? The people that are causing problems, they're over 30, okay? It's not my kids.
How old are you?
35.
Okay, you're okay.
He's
You're the problem.
Just ask my wife.
So
I'm older.
that's one thing that I kind of battled with for a while with my old guys. This is like, well, they cause problems. I'm like, no, they frustrate you. There's a difference,
100%.
okay? You cause problems. They can be aggravating and frustrating, okay? And yeah, I wanted to highlight that because I hear that a lot where people are real hesitant to bring these young kids into the organization, and it's just man. It's like, oh God, just stop. You either want people or you don't.
That's exactly right.
Jesus, just train them. They'll figure it out.
So y'all's junior program super strong. If you're not following the Office of the Divine Fire Chief, yeah, on social media, Facebook for sure. If you're not following that, you need to follow that. It's a great account. He's posting good stuff. It's worth there's some ideas, right? You can follow Granbury. We're posting stuff. It's a good place for ideas,
And
right?
most of the stuff we're posting is like the new stuff, right? Like we have an 18-year-old who just graduated high school. He graduated TCFP, EMT, straight out of high school, gets a job offer for $52,000 a year. Now, for an 18-year-old kid, no college, no debt, still lives at home with mommy and daddy, $52,000 a year, this boy's got an opportunity, right? The local news channels ate it up. KENS 5 came out, KSAT 12 came out. They all wanted to do, all the papers came out. But realistically, there's not one of you in here who can't do that at a local high school. And that kid brought us 6 more. That brought us 5 more. That brought us 6 more. That brought us, and there's no reason all of you can't do that. And it's all by the marketing and pushing on social media.
And so you do a different thing, and you mentioned it earlier with the college, but go through what you're doing with your pre-med students, because that's another thing. And not everybody has a university and all that, but if you're open to that out-of-town people, I mean, not every town that has a university has a volunteer fire department, right?
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, if you think about I'm going to start with the territory restrictions. When I joined, you had to live within the city limits of Robinson, our ETJ, basically within 1 mile of the city limits. Now, you have to get rid of that territory. Like, I'm pretty sure he would let me join. I live 3 hours from him as long as I'm willing to commit time, you know?
My application's online, so you can just go on there.
Right,
DivineFire.com. Click there.
So, show of hands besides Chief Becker, whose favorite thing to run are EMS calls? Yeah, okay, one guy. Yeah. So, you know, EMS is 60, 70, sometimes 80% of what your department has to do. It really can kind of wear your department out, wear your people out. So we have students, thankfully, and this is a blessing that we have that not all departments have, but we have a Baylor University that students want to become doctors, ER physicians, medical directors, and that they want as much clinical experience as they can possibly get while they're going through high school. It also helps that they get volunteer hours that they can track, and that looks really good on a med school application. They have a letter of reference from a fire chief that looks great on a medical school application, and all those things. So what we've done, and really it credits to one guy, his name is Vladimir Cruz. He applied to join our department, and initially it was like, oh, you're a Baylor student, you live near campus, that's 10 minutes from our fire station, we don't know how this will work. And this was 3, 4, 5 years ago, and at some point we looked at it and we're like, why are we doing this? We have sleeping quarters at our station. We have 6 beds at our station that people can sleep in. Let's give it a shot and let him run some EMS calls. And we could not have done it without him 100%, but he has helped us build a program where we now have 21 EMTs, and by next year we'll have, or by in the fall when school restarts, we'll have 28 EMTs on our department that all they want to run, well, they like running grass fires and stuff with us too. We let them have some fun too, but they want to run medical calls with us, and they're getting clinical experience. That's what's the selling point for them, and the volunteer hours. So I think I mentioned earlier, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 nights a week, we have at least 2 during the school year, sometimes 3, 4, 5 people spend the night at our station, get up at 2 o'clock to go pick up grandma, to go put a Band-Aid on the stub toe, whatever it takes, cardiac arrest, everything. That helps take the load off of our older firefighters, the people that have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and go to work. So it's huge. What we do for them is we provide that culture of, you don't have to just show up from 6 p.m. And guess what? You don't have to set an alarm and be gone at 6 a.m. You can sleep in. We're not going to let people go in there and work out until 8 a.m. Because the workout area is near the bunks or near the rooms. And then they're in like finals week, they're spending more time in a day studying than I spent in my 4 years of college studying for their final exams and everything. So, because we have whiteboards all over the place, and they draw their pre-med hieroglyphics on the board, and they're studying, and they're bringing their friends. It's not like you don't just have to be a member. Bring your whole class to our station if you want to. Use our training room to study for tests. We have a full kitchen, cook dinner. We'll provide the food for you. Hang out, snacks, drinks, all that kind of stuff. And we've built this culture of now all these college kids want to hang out. And 5 years ago, we were pretty resistant to, oh, they're college kids. All they're going to do is party. That might have been my college experience, but that's not these pre-med student experiences.
Just for the record, I just sent my assistant chief we have a college fairly close. We're about to steal your idea.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
It's
That's
I
a
wish,
great idea.
I wish.
I wish I had a college. I've got like the perfect setup for it, for what we're talking about here, but I don't have a college. It is infuriating.
But Ron does a similar thing, but he just does it with his out-of-towners, right?
Yeah, first of all, when we talk the culture thing a little bit, I want to make sure I didn't leave the wrong impression which I do a good job of. When I tell you that recruiting comes, the chief's got to be the guy that's the main recruiter. The chief's got to set the tone. Everybody's got to be the recruiter. My operations chief's number one thing on his assignment is recruiting and retention. It isn't operations. That's what I tell him is number one. My officers are assigned to bring me 2 recruits a year. If you don't have your officers, if you're a chief and you aren't telling your officers, this is one of the most important things you can be doing, you're not going to build the culture or whatever word you want to use that everyone's trying to get these new people in. Matt talks about them having fist fights over there over things. I'll tell you what my guys fight over. Whose name is on that application that says I brought this guy in? Because they want me to say, okay, yeah, Lieutenant so-and-so, you brought me no, I'm the one that got him. I called him. And what I'm trying to say from the chief's standpoint, I think you want to build something like that. Ours isn't perfect, but you want to build it where the idea about bringing in new people permeates your organization, and it'll pay several dividends. It's not only the thing about here's how I get new recruits in, but I will promise you, if you bring someone you have someone that brings someone into the department, you can use the word mentor or whatever, they want to make sure that person that they brought succeeds. And all of a sudden now you've got, if you have 15 people bringing in new people, you've got 15 coaches, and hey, here's how we get something done, and here's what we do. And I just want to make sure that I don't leave the impression, okay, recruiting is the chief's job, nobody else's. It's the whole group, and it's got to be, everybody's got to feel it. The best compliment your department will be paid, in my opinion, is that someone that's on your department that knows what's going on is willing to reach out to someone else and say, hey, this is something good, you ought to come be part of it. A lot of our juniors, high school kids, they, like you, want to bring their buddies and all like that. But that's the best compliment your department can be paid, because those are people that know what's going on. And if your folks aren't out here wanting to tell people, hey, I found this, it's great, come be a part of it, I do this. You've been around 6 months, I'll probably pull you in the corner and say, tell me what you think. What are we screwing up on? Because we screw up every call we go out on, and the one that screws it up the most is me. And I can tell you that. And like Matt says, it's not capital offense that make a mistake, and make it all the time. Learn from it, get better, go on. But you want your members to be proud of your organization so that they want to tell people who come be part.
Right.
And I don't want to leave the impression that it's just the chief, but the chief's the one that's got to make that happen.
Well, and the chief has to take an interest in those applicants
Yes.
from the get-go, has to go have a conversation with them, has to engage that person at the initial onset of that application so that they realize that the chief is involved in the department. He's He's hands-on. He's working for what's going on here. And I do want to be completely clear. We're telling you that reduce the barriers to entry, but none of us up here have lowered our standards.
Absolutely.
Not even close. We've raised the standard.
Correct.
The standard keeps going up. When those numbers go up and we start having more people, well, guess what? We can even be more picky and have a little higher standard. We have gone in Granbury from, certification's great, and if you want to do it, we'll help you do it. We certify people through Firefighter 2, and 99% of our new recruits are doing it before their 6-month probation is over. And the only way they're not doing it is if they just joined at the wrong time, right? And then even if they joined at the wrong time and they missed some training, they're catching it within the 7th month. Like it's not this long drawn out deal. We're training them early out the gate. We're getting them involved. We're getting them to a level of, I hate to use the word competency because they're not completely competent on that pace, right? But they're safe. They're safe enough to not be a hazard to themselves and the rest of the department.
Yeah, I think one thing is it's not that we're winding down, but I do want to get to a point where if anyone has questions. And one thing I want to kind of highlight is, and you guys don't have to do this part, but I think it's important to talk about the mistakes that we made too. Oh, yeah. And what we learned. And I assure you, I am full of fail, okay? And I have no problem admitting when something blew up in my face or it wasn't a big deal, and because I mishandled it, it became a big deal, and continually just bit me, whatever, okay? One of the bigger mistakes that I had in Granbury is, at the end of the day, the chief's a political position, okay? You still have to get elected. And we have, today, as strong as anyone else, a generational gap, okay? And hesitancy, just whatever, maybe I'm like one of the few lone people right in the middle of it anymore, so I understand both sides of it. But probably one of the bigger things I can tell your organizations is do not hesitate to give responsibility to these young men and women. And I mean give them responsibility. Do not hold them back. You are, I'm telling you, you are indelibly holding back your organization by putting the reins on these people. Do not get me wrong. Obviously, they need to operate safely and competently, okay? But when they're there, turn them loose and stop holding them back. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Structure fire. I am in a tanker, so I'm second on scene, okay? Get up, get out of the truck, throw my 2.5 out, walking up to the engine, about to connect it. The whole truck's full of kids.
That ought to be a 3-inch, by the way.
The truck's full of kids, okay? I've been chief maybe 6-8 months. And they literally are all standing there like pointer dogs, okay? Waiting for the trigger to be pulled. Turn and look. The building's on fire. What are you doing? I mean, it's, go. And off they go. They were so browbeat and so held back and so conditioned by the old members of the department, don't do anything until I allow it to happen. They're watching the house burn. That's how bad it was for me.
And they're trained and they're competent and they have skills.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Yeah, we're
they
talking-
didn't start yesterday.
Yeah.
They're
Driver operator, pump ops, firefighter 1 and 2 completed, TCC completed, TEEX completed, transportation emergencies completed, stuff's completed. that got there, some of the most trained volunteers in the country, and they're standing there waiting. It's a disaster. Don't be like us in that circumstance.
You
Get
know-
these people trained and turn them loose.
I think, I love that you want to talk about the mistakes, because I think people so often are so afraid of their failures that it's like, oh, let's not talk about that, let's hide that under the rug. Guys, if you're not failing, you're not trying. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I don't care. You can't find an entrepreneur in the world who didn't fall on their face. You can't find a leader in the world who hasn't stumbled and fallen. If you're trying, you're going to screw up. I do it on a regular, okay? The key for us is you have to have the standards, right? You're talking about the standards. We haven't lowered our standards. Our standards have climbed to the top. But the standards are for everybody, right? Including me. When I mess up, I tell my guys, hold me to the standard. If you see me I'll give you a prime example right now. I'm horrible about getting out on a wreck on I-35, and I'm focused on the wrecks there. I want to get over there. I want to help. I'm an EMT, slap my gloves on, run over there. Where our policy is, we do not get out on the highway with anything less than the cone set, the helmet on, and the vest on. That's our policy, right? It's safety first. If I get hurt, I can't help anybody else, right? I often forget that. And my guys, my youngest, newest recruits will get off the truck and go, Chief, your helmet. Yep, I'll be right back. And I'll run and grab it and, head back over there. It's okay to make mistakes. In the fire service, we've been so, like you said, browbeat, that it's like, well, if you do that, Chief's going to be mad. No, don't. You can't build a culture that way. You can't think about it that way. It's okay to show your failures. And not only that, that's the way your department grows. After every call, we come back and do an after-action review. Every single call. I don't care if we didn't do anything on the call. Hey, how did we get the trucks out? What stumbled us? Why did it take us, almost 3 minutes and 20 seconds to roll a truck? Our standard is if we got people on station 2 minutes, wheels need to be turned in 2 minutes. What happened? Right? Oh, well, this got tangled up, and okay, all right, we need to do a better job of staging and pre. Every single call, we go over what we could have done better, and we get it better. One of the mistakes for us was, when we started the academy, we got a lot of pushback, and a lot of people were like, you can't do that. You're a volunteer department. You'll never get, you'll never get the buy-in. You're going to spend all this money. You're going to drain the accounts. You're not going to do any good, right? And so one of my biggest failures is I actually listen to a little bit of that crap, right? Because it's hard to block that stuff out. I have my own message. I've been speaking it for years. I've been an entrepreneur for years. I truly believe that failure has stopped more people that fear has stopped more people than failure, right? The fear of falling, the fear of messing up, the fear of screwing it up. And so that has stopped more people than failing, because if you fail, you learn and you keep moving, right? Well, I started listening to some of the stuff, and I backed off. And thank goodness I had 12 people with me that said, Chief, what are you doing? Why are we backing off this? I said, well, I just don't want to mess you guys up. They said, Chief, we asked for it. If we mess up, we go down in a blaze of glory. Let's go. It's either going to be one huge success or one big pile of mess. Either way, we're in it together. And I was like, well, all right, full pedal, here we go. And we went from $130,000 a year budget to $798,000 a year budget. We went from 12 people on the roster to 50 people on the roster. And I can't tell you how glad I am that they shook me out of my own fear and that we put the throttle down. And now, does that mean we haven't fallen? Does that mean we haven't taken stumbling blocks? No, we get punched in the face on a regular. But we keep going. We keep figuring out how to fix those things and keep going. So that's one of my failures, is that I actually let the naysayers get in my head for just a brief second.
Well, it's easy.
Yeah.
They're prominently and often.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there. Ron, do you
You
have
got anything? No,
What have you learned?
he's never
No,
failed.
Well, what have
he's
I
never
failed
made a
on?
mistake. That's why they're so good.
Oh, shit. I think everybody's hit on about the big points. The only thing I would say is what works in Crescent, like we said, may not work in Divine. What works in Divine may not work in Crescent. Please don't think that where we've gotten a few things right, that this is the recipe, like you're making chocolate chip cookies and it'll always work. Keep your antennas up. I didn't do this for a living. I was oil and gas business, and I was fortunate. I got to retire and I was 52, and I took this up as a hobby. Little did I know what was going to happen, a hobby. But coming from my background, and I'll just tell you, the last 5 years of what I did in the oil and gas business, I was president of the second largest chain of truck stops and convenience stores in the nation. I had 35,000 employees. We had 8 million customers a day, that sort of thing. I will tell you, I'm probably, although I'm 20-plus years out of it, I'm probably the best cigarette, beer, and condom salesman in the room. So selling is fun to me. Selling my department is fun to me. But with regards to mistakes, so many places, when I ran that chain of convenience store, we had an operations manual that was six inches tall, 2 volumes. I mean, it was worse than the 10 Commandments. No one could cover all of that. And of course, we had it so we could always, if we had someone that was working out, we could find a reason in there why it was time for us to part ways. I don't run, we've got our SOPs or SOGs and everything, but I think it's important as we talk the culture thing. The culture has to be that you want thinkers, not just turn the crank technicians. And that's a little bit foreign to what I've seen with a lot of fire departments. I went to Harvard for a few months, and one of the business instructors, we'd have little dinner meetings, and what is the biggest mistake you see people make in business? Well, to paraphrase him, they're working today's problems and not tomorrow's problems. And if you don't have, if you're in leadership in any type of organization, you got to take care of what's going on today, but the bigger part is, what are you going to look like 3, 4, 5 years from now, and what do I need to be doing to set the table for that? And that's not going to come out of a book of procedures and policies. It comes out of cutting your folks loose to think and bring new ideas to the table, because Lord knows I don't have all of them. And I can go over call after call after call that we've had where I said to someone, this is what you need to do, and they come back on the radio and says, hey, I had to do this instead, and it worked because I didn't have all the answers. And that's part of this whole thing when we talk about making mistakes and all. They know, everybody on our department knows I'll make mistakes, and we don't want to get anybody hurt. We don't want to make a mistake that has a worse outcome, no doubt about it. But if you're not harnessing the creative power of all the people that you're with, you're missing out on a great asset that's there for all of us. And I've got fires that went out because somebody, or we did a good job because someone came to me afterwards and said, I didn't do exactly what you told me to do. And he jokes, the benevolent dictator. You know, I tell people that come on our department, hey, we're a volunteer department, we're a democracy. I got one vote just like you do. Yeah, I got the bully pulpit. But I said, we get out on the scene and it's dictatorship and I'm the dictator. Well, we're not going we're not talking freelancing or everything like that, but your officers, how many of you have run with departments that are very strict by the book and everything and see great big mistakes made when that happens? And I would encourage you to try to thread that needle, whether we're talking recruitment, but it's a big part of keeping your people wanting to be part of an organization, is that they have the opportunity to not only contribute what they can do, but their ideas and their suggestions. And some of them may be the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but don't tell them it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard.
There also might be that little gold nugget right there, right?
There
That
is.
you're like, why in the world did I not think of that?
I don't think I've got a firefighter on our department who can't bring something to the table that I can't bring.
Stephen?
Yeah, I think, so I'm 35 years old, been a chief for going on 6 months, been on our department 7 years. I think, yeah, I know, so, yeah, exactly. So the fear piece, honestly, is probably one of my big mistakes, is like, I had that perception of, I'm too young to be a chief, I have, 7 years experience on this department, those kinds of, and it's not like, those, our department, our department chief selection process is not typically a popularity contest. It's not now. I was selected to be in this role because our department believes in that, our board believes in that. But I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made, and it was actually, I thought about this yesterday in Chief Atkinson's program. He talked about, I don't know how old the kid is that damaged the bumper. How old is he?
He's 25.
25-year-old kid that caused $10,000 in damage to a bumper. We had a person, this is confession, this is live on YouTube, so I'm gonna have to own up to this too. We had a girl in our department that tapped the rear of our Tahoe and caused $400 in damage. You know what our department did? We made her pay for it. Absolutely unacceptable. Like, people make mistakes, things happen. It's not the big, coincidentally, 48 hours later, a different member backed into a fence, and guess what? She didn't pay for the fence repair, but we made this other girl pay for something because it was her, because she hit our brand new car. Very minor damage. I think that, but
I slammed the squad into the back of a vehicle in the middle of town, so.
yeah, and we joke.
I was in a 3-car pileup in the command unit.
Yeah.
It happens.
Right, yeah. Mistakes happen, so don't dwell on them. Again, like, fear is what causes failure, not mistakes. So don't let the fear of things get in your way, because we would not be where we are as a department right now without our previous chief and without me being progressive and breaking down these barriers to people being on a department. And I thought of one other thing, but I think that was the big one for me in the last 6 or 7 months.
The big part of our podcast, for me and Jesse, is that the two of us could sit down and rattle on for hours about the VFDs. Hours. Lots of very spicy opinions, okay? We've had a modicum of success in Granbury, okay? And some of the stuff that we've had, it's beneficial for other people. And what we found is that at the end of the day, here's the question. Is there a playbook for the volunteer fire departments? There's lots out there of other, books for dummies on X, Y, and Z. You see a lot of playbooks for career departments. But this is one group that you really don't see it. But oddly enough, we're still the largest fire service in the U.S.
Amen to that.
And the purpose of this isn't to give some sort of guiding light or divine inspiration. It's to start a discussion. And the best discussions you're going to have is internal and with your neighbors. Work together. Work with each other and build it locally. One of the bigger things that we found for success in Granbury is Granbury always continually built on training and tried different things and just on and on. Had different results that were proactive and beneficial. We started to see that to spill out into the departments around us. If we're doing a whole bunch of training in Granbury, that'd make a lot of sense to invite the other departments in on it. Okay? If we're going to be doing firefighting academies, we should train their people too. It benefits me directly. They're my automatic aid. I should at least try and make everyone on scene as safe as possible, not just my people, and hoard that and keep it away from them. Oddly enough, the reaping benefit of it is again, go from the classic 9-hour structure fire, not even the slab saved, to, hey, guys, we've been here an hour and a half. What the hell's going on? Why is this fire not out, mopped out, and hosed back on the truck? It really made that big of a difference. Here's the other thing I'm going to tell you. Time. It's not a light switch, okay? It's a truly slow burn. When I started in Granbury in 2010, I got involved in training in 2011 and 12. I revamped our training program in 2013 was in training for 8 years and the whole time building it up, ultimately inviting the county departments in. I moved on to greener pastures and operations and station captains and on, okay? And training didn't falter, but it definitely plateaued. It fell, okay? Was not progressing anymore. And it took someone else coming in to make that difference, okay? And take all that time, energy, and effort put into that one project and not let it just go completely to the wayside. Reach out to my co-chiefs near me and say, hey, can you send instructors and build this thing back up? And as we built, grew, and developed, the big thing is the last thing I'd say is, and I like to think I'm really good at this, I am not a micromanager. I'm like the definition of a not micromanager. All right, if you say you got it, you got it. Chances are I may not even check on you until you say you're done with it. Oh, you're done, good. It's all right, we'll run with that, okay? Get friends, build relationships, trust them, let them work, okay? I've been on Granbury 15 years, and it took us 15 years to get where we're at. And that took monumental help of Jesse, Donnie Hurd, all of my other officers, the membership. They're the most important part of this. It's not me. I'm the least most important thing in all of this. If I'm good at anything, it's management. That's it. Turns out, but that's it. There's no secret sauce that I brought to this, other than being willing to communicate, recognize other people that should be in the positions that they're in and putting them there, staying out of their way, and then the city of Granbury being smart enough to say, hey, they're actually really good. They just need a couple of socks full of nickels, and we're going to let them run with it and let them do it. So city management, city council, being willing to invest in the organization makes a huge difference there. So we've got about 15 minutes before we're done. Does anyone have just any general questions about anything across the board? Training, recruiting, programs, just what do you guys have? Because we've thrown a lot of different ideas and discussion pieces at you. And if not, we'll probably finish with a closing from us.
I got a question. This is for the Granbury. You said you had 240 hours in-house training. Is that above and beyond your academy?
That is including the academy.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a fallacy. That's the hands-on part, the hands-on pieces. The didactic portion that's done online is not in that number. So we don't count those hours towards our, it's convoluted, but it doesn't have the book part of the academy, but it has the 12 hands-on Saturdays that are involved in the academy.
Yeah, we use that academy up in Potter County where I'm from. We do the training 2 days a week to Saturday. For the members not in that training, because most of our instructors or training cadre do that. So we're spent trying to come up with other training ideas for the people that have already gone through there. Do you guys have any?
What county again?
Potter County,
Amarillo.
up by Amarillo.
Amarillo.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up north.
Yeah.
So,
We can get a map.
yeah, it's Oklahoma. No, wait. Training's kind of this animal. So we have department training, which you could consider to be company training, right? So we have department training that happens basically 3 to 4 Thursday nights a month, depending on how many Thursday nights a month there are, because the first one is a meeting. And then we have recruit training, rookie school, that happens twice a year for 12 weeks. We're actually working on a plan to get that down to 8 weeks by going to like a lot longer Saturday, right? Instead of being a 6-hour Saturday, we're going to be like a 10 to 12 hour Saturday to get that done. Then you have medical training, because that's a piece of it. We've got to provide some level of that to our people because our equipment's a little bit different than everybody else's equipment. So we use that. We have to refresh some driver training every year because that's just a piece we have to do. So there's usually going to be a EVDT or some form of something that's in that year's schedule. And then we have the specialty stuff. We have swift water guys, we have rope tech guys, we have all these guys that are wanting to do this extra stuff because once we run them through that academy and we've got them their Fire 2, which is usually the finish line for a lot of departments, that's our starting point. So we have to involve them into some of this specialty ropes, swift water, boat ops type training that we're doing in right now. We're working with Tarrant County College, which is the local community college, to do that training, and we're getting a lot of that as outside instruction so that they're not looking at myself or the training captain's beautiful face doing this week after week after week. We've got fresh faces doing that. But by the time you take all those little pieces, all that extra stuff, that fills up a year's worth of calendar for those 3 to 4 times a month. And it's just a matter of building out that schedule. And we send guys to annual school, we send guys to anything basically. If you want training, we'll go find the money to get you whatever training it is you want. It's that investment in people that Greg was talking about.
You know, it's also an investment in your department. And one thing, I don't know, anybody in here use training division in Crowley? Anybody?
We don't.
You okay? All right. So we used to send people to online to do training division and whatever, and we were paying through 2604 about $700 a class, send them up there, whatever. That's for Fire 1, Fire 2, Hazmat Awareness, and Hazmat Ops. That's 4 different classes that the 2604 will pay for. Well, for us, once you get your Fire 1, your Fire 2, your Hazmat A, and your Hazmat O, the next class I send you to is an instructor class. And you're like, wait a minute, I just learned how to do this. You want me to be an instructor? I want you to be an instructor because the other instructors I have are going to teach you how to do that part right. But what that allows us to do by having those instructors in-house is that's where we developed our academy. So instead of sending that $2,800 a person to Crowley, we now train all of that in our own department, which keeps that money in-house. But wait, there's more. So not only did over 10 people, that's about $28,000. Not only that, but I invite the surrounding departments to come train with us. If they send us 10 people, that's $28,000. So instead of sending out $28,000, what I've done is I've brought in $28,000. That's a $56,000 turnaround for your department. That is the business side of this, right? And that's the way you as leaders have to think. And so you get to train them the right way in-house right there. You get to save your department a little money. You get to make your department a little bit of money. But there are all kinds of things that you can then teach once you have the instructors there. You can go through and you can start teaching anything that's in the catalog. You can teach instructor. You can teach inspector. You can teach, whatever you have a certification in, whatever your person has a certification in, as long as they also have instructor, you can now go and teach that. And so that's an important aspect, is that's where a lot of your trainings can come from. Now you can just go through those JPRs that are on the SFMA website, and you got a ton to train on right there in-house.
Anyone else got anything else? If you don't mind, run up here to this mic and so the world can hear you. Oddly enough, we've had South Africa and Brazil and some weird places pop up here lately. So they're trying to learn English listening to us. So
oh man, they're in trouble.
That's my goal in life.
They're learning Texas.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still learning English.
As long as the SAP button ain't been there, I'll go Spanish. But we're a department, a combination of paid and volunteer, but we struggle to get volunteers. Now, you mentioned something about how your application is set up. Right now, this year has been we're like the Cowboys. Jerry Jones says, we're all in, we're not all in. What suggestion would you take? Because our application is questions, but then we have to rate each question and how they answer it for each recruit that comes in and puts in an application. what would you suggest that we could do something, or we can make a change or do something different with
I
that?
think the easiest way to answer that is, it's kind of twofold. I would tell you to just like, everything for Granbury Associated, you can just jump on our website, applications there, SOPs there, SOG, article, constitution, bylaws, it's all right there. Jump on their websites and just find an application that you like. Why reinvent the wheel when you're literally like, copy, delete name, insert.
Yeah.
And then that would just find one that's catered more towards your area and organization. And if you have a particular question that you need to be in there, whatever it is, maybe you need a specific unicycle rider. Throw that in there. Maybe you need that. Bilingual or whatever.
I think all of
Put that
us,
in there.
yeah, I think all of us have a little bit different process to get to where we get. We do an application, a background check, an interview process that's through an interview board, and then we put them in front of the membership, and the membership has to vote on them. And most applicants that get through that initial background check, most of those are going to make it to the becoming a probationary member, right? 99% of those are going to make it there, but we lose some. We lose some because, hey, I didn't know about this or whatever. So it's good problem to figure out, right? Not a huge deal to figure out, but
Guys, I hate to do it. I have to shut it down because the next class is coming in. Here's the kicker. Thank you to our podcast guys and production team.
Big Daddy Media, give them a shout out. They took care of us today.
Thank you everyone who participated today. We'll be out there in the hall, so if you have more questions, just ask us out.
Come find us.
So, questions, concerns, comments, find us at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com. Thank you everyone, and I really appreciate it.